Peace, Brockton. Today I want to share with you some information regarding the city of Brockton, Mayor Robert Sullivan, Police Chief Gomes, the Brockton Police Department, and what's happened since the protests. Last year I stood before you and I told you we need to go beyond the protests. We need to stop standing up there yelling and screaming for nothing and not doing anything to really create effective change here in our community. So beyond the protests, I stayed in communication with Mayor Sullivan, who sat and met with myself, Janine Carrero from MCAN, and Will Dickerson from BIC, and we discussed the issues of police corruption here, how it is tied intricately to the DA's office, and how certain crimes were committed, one by Detective Ernie Bell, another by police officers of the Brockton Police Force who shot and killed a man, John E. Parks, behind the old McMenemy's. So we sat and had the meeting. Bob Sullivan committed to investigating the investigation that was done, because prior to our meeting, Ollie Spears actually had become an intermediary between myself and Darren Duarte, the communications person for the Brockton Police Department, and sent me a text and said that a investigation had already been done on this particular case, and that everything was remedied, that everything was found to be clear, and it was an IA investigation, an IA report. Subsequent to that, I had communicated with Bob Sullivan. We set the meeting. After that meeting, during that meeting, Bob Sullivan committed to finding out what was in that report, and then subsequently reporting back, not only the findings, but doing a subsequent report into that situation. That was on April 1st. Bob Sullivan contacted me a couple weeks ago to sit and meet and have a follow-up meeting regarding that first meeting. So we set the meeting and had it last Thursday. It was myself, Will Dickerson, my wife, and no, not Will Dickerson, myself, my wife, and Janine Carrero. The first meeting my wife was in as well. So during that meeting, Chief Gomes gave us a full report on the investigation of John Parks. It was said that John Parks, they saw him at what is now the Stop and Go gas station. They chased him from the Stop and Go to that open lot, which was at that time the McMenemy's, behind the McMenemy's restaurant, which was closed at the time. Upon going back there, he said at least one officer struggled with Parks. During that struggle, John Parks somehow pulled out a .22 pistol, somehow got the forearm strength to struggle with a police officer, at least one. But we know at least two were on the scene. So he was fighting with at least one. At least two were on the scene. At least. So the officer remembers him firing and hearing the click of the pin hit the hammer and then nothing happening. And so at least two officers at this time fired upon John Parks. the struggle continued because John Parks, even after running, and they said his blood alcohol content was 0.13, almost double the legal limit, and marijuana in the system, still was struggling and fighting. So they fired another volley of shots at him. This is multiple officers, I believe 4 officers, fighting and struggling with him. And still after the second volley, they said they could not subdue him and fired another volley of shots into him, eventually bringing him down, as they said. I don't know how that's possible, but this is what's reported, even though we know that police officers are trained to empty their clip when firing. I've never seen an incident where they fire, fight, fire again, fight, fire again, or how they're fighting with an individual and still firing at him and not being worried about hitting their comrades, or how you have at least 2 officers on the scene. They said the gun clicked. No one thought to take the gun, or but that was their report, and they said it was backed up because they didn't want to investigate it. They sent it to the DA's office. The DA's office, who we know is corrupt, Tim Cruz, who we know is crooked as the letter S. He commissions some of his state troopers, special state troopers, to do the investigation. So they said ballistics backs all of this up. I would like to know, and that's why an organization like the ACLU has to head up an investigation into this matter. I would like to know how many shots were shot into John Parks. I would like to know how many shots were fired. Because if you're emptying your clip, stopping firing again, that's reload. And I want to know, there are more questions to be answered. To give me that thorough of a report and still have questions, me as a citizen, I don't know how you can come to conclusions. And as far as the Ernie Bell situation, that's even worse. The police chief basically said that if you have a multi-unit home, anyone that owns a multi-unit home that leads into a hallway that is shared by the multi-units, they have the right to kick your door in without a warrant. They can kick your door in for any reason. That's what they tried to tell me. And they tried to use a case law. They tried to use a case Commonwealth versus Dora, to back it up. Commonwealth versus Dora, which in a specific piece says that it was okay for the conclusion of that part of the motion was that the police were lawfully able to enter a commonly used space of that building. The only problem is Commonwealth versus Dora is the case of a man who had went into a woman's window, sexually assaulted her, and dropped his keys in her apartment upon leaving. The police found the keys. Someone that had saw the man outside looking under a tree had reported it to police. The police came, asked him, "What are you doing here?" He said he lost his keys. So they asked for his ID, got his address. He lived in a complex project. So this building was 6 floors, 120 tenants. And that was part of the reasoning why they denied that motion. Also, what's key to know, and not only in that Commonwealth versus Dora consideration, every single case law used said one thing, said something specific. that even though it was a trespass, or they said illegal trespass, they said nothing about breaking and entering. Anytime you break and enter into a building, that is a felony, period. And the chief tried to, defend this in saying that it's a common space, so they have the right to kick your door in and do what they wish at that point, I guess, once they're lawfully in. I don't know about you, but I'm I've been beyond the point of taking this. The mayor signed off on all of this. Anyone that wants to hear a transcript of that meeting, contact me 978-871-9710, or hit me up on Facebook. I've been sincerely working in the best interest of Brockton. I don't mind, if we want to build a $98 million public safety building. It's what's inside that building that matters. We need to clean up our police department. We have great police officers, we do. It's the system. I know Anthony Lewis, good man. Anthony Lewis is, and his family are facing a tragedy of having to bear the burden of a man's life on his conscience, but also a tragedy of the system. That's nothing that wasn't done in that police department on a regular basis. On a regular basis. It was just his night. And if we continue to villainize men like that and applaud crooks and villains like Ernie Bell, what are we saying to our young people police officers are? Not only that, what are we saying we're willing to accept in our community? Because our children are being affected by this. Mayor Sullivan's children will not be affected by the police department. Our city councilors and the people who make the decisions in the city, they're not affected by the ills. We are. The people who live and work and whose lifeblood exists in this city. So I'm making a call to my people. We can change this city right now. The resources are there. We have a common interest. Our city, our livelihoods, our children. We need to fix our school department. We need to fix our police department. We need to fix our city government. There's a reason why most of the positions in City Hall up and bounced. Wait till it starts coming down about all the corruptions and the paybacks with the grants coming into the city through the YMCA and the police department and the DA's office. They've got all this money they're throwing around, but do nothing for us but lock our children up and make more money off of that. Keep them in court. Keep them on probation, supervised release. And we're affected. They're not. And when I say they, I mean the system. And it's not even so much the people in the system, it's the system itself. But we have a chance to break it, people. We've set up a structure. We have an organized group of people ready to take this down. All we need is your support. Now, you know me. I'm not one to just talk it. You're going to see. We're going to explain step by step How the police department, the police chief, the DA, who's the worst of them all, the DA's office, City Hall, all those people behind the grants, these organizations like the Y and the Boys and Girls Club, they're raping and leeching off our community, pillaging and plundering. And they just pass it on down to their kids and their nieces and nephews and whoever else. And we continue to suffer. So I say to the people that are ready to make something happen, you heard my number, you see my Facebook, reach out to me. Watch and share this. I know it's 16 minutes. Watch and share it. And watch and share the videos that are coming out next. We're not only telling, we're showing you the corruption in the city. We're showing you why you need to do something. And we're also showing you what you can do. First and foremost, if they're in office, get them out. Get them out. This November, this primary, get them out. Robert Sullivan supports police corruption. He showed us. And if you don't believe me and you want to know, like I said, just contact me. I'll prove it to you. But it's that time, my peoples. Peace.